Have you ever heard of Philodendron billicosum? Well, me neither, until I received really special plant mail exactly 1 year ago. A nursery in Western Australia has created a new Philodendron hybrid by crossing Philodendron verrucosum with Philodendron billietiae to turn it into Philodendron billicosum. They reached out to me to see if I'd be interested in growing some of their seedlings, and of course I said yes. And in today's video we're taking it back to that unboxing from 12 months ago, and then we're following the plant's journey over the course of the year, and at the end of the video I'm going to give you any tips and tricks I've learned about this plant. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to another plant spotlight. It's a series where I take one plant and we follow the journey of the plant over the course of a year. And today's victim is Philodendron billicosum, a hybrid of verrucosum and billietiae. And I'm a sucker for anything verrucosum, so I was really excited when I received that plant mail 12 months ago. Now, before I give it back to Jan from the past, I'm sure you want to have a sneaky little look at what these plants look like. I'll give you the spectrum. This is the one that's done the best. This is the one that's done the worst. But before I give you any more information about this plant and we're looking at the final result in a little bit more detail, let's give it back to Jan from a year ago. Also, just a little reminder that these videos take quite a long time to create, well, 12 months to be exact, so I would really appreciate if you give the video a thumbs up, if you leave a nice comment, and subscribe to my channel. Subscribing is for free, but it really means the world to me. And also, you might think you are subscribed, but I've had so many comments recently from people saying that they weren't subscribed even though they thought they were. So maybe this is your moment to check and also turn on the bell notification. But enough introduction, let's get started. I got really exciting plant mail from Shak's Eden. I'll link their Instagram account down below as well as in the description if you want to check it out. Shakara reached out to me asking if I'd be interested in receiving some hybrids that she made. Specifically, she asked if I would like to grow one of her billi and verrucosum hybrids. And well, she had me at verrucosum. You guys know I'm obsessed with verrucosums, and all of their hybrids I just really like the red that verrucosum has to offer, the velvet texture, the hairy petioles. I think verrucosum just has so many nice features, and I can see why people choose to use it as a parent in their hybrids. Shakara has provided me with a few more details about the journey, and she has also documented the pollination journey on her Instagram. So I'll pop in some of her footage on my left over here so you can kind of see the journey of this plant. So it's a hybrid of Philodendron verrucosum, and verrucosum is the seed bearer, and Philodendron billietiae, I don't know how to pronounce it, is the pollen donor. So yeah. The verrucosum produced 3 inflorescences within a few weeks of each other and grew them all to ripened infructescences. The billi flowered at the same time as the verrucosum, so she used fresh pollen and pollen that was a couple days old from the fridge. There were only those 2 philodendron flowering at this time in the greenhouse, so any cross-pollination with any other philodendron that was currently in bloom would have been eliminated. The gestation was around 205 days. Gestation? I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm not sure. Or 29 weeks, and the first inflorescence was pollinated on the 15th of November, and the first inflorescence seeds were extracted on the 8th of June 2023. So, what's that? December, January, February, March, April, May, June. 7 months. I think I could have gotten there quicker. Anyway, the first signs of germination were on the 8th of July 2023, and I'm not too sure how the timing is between the footage on the left and me talking, but you will see how tiny these philodendron seeds were. They're tiny. So I never tried philodendron pollination. It seems to be a little trickier, and you really need to hit that right window to pollinate the inflows. Not like anthuriums where you have a much larger window available to actually get the pollination done. So good on you, Shakara, for doing it. If you're more interested in philodendron pollination in general, it's a complex but very interesting topic. Make sure to follow Shakara at Shaks_Eden on Instagram. or have a look at the video I did with Tim from Grow Vertical on my channel as well. I'll link it at the end screen later on. Tim also does a lot of philodendron pollination and hybridization. You know what I mean. And that was a really interesting tour, and I learned a lot from Tim as well. But I think that's all of the background that we need to know. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I love that people are so passionate about, you know, this pollination journey and hybridization and so on. And I personally am more interested in the end result. I think one time, eventually I should try once I've got a little bit more time. But for now, I'm just more interested in what the end result looks like. You guys know I love growing plants for aesthetic reasons. I treat them like artworks that I want to decorate my apartment and my garden with. So at the end of the day, I'm more intrigued to see what do they look like. Like, to my knowledge, this is the first. Wow, okay, hang on, sorry. To my knowledge, this is the first time this has been done, or I haven't heard about anybody trying a similar hybrid. I'm sure somebody would have done it somewhere, but I suppose this isn't something you see at nurseries at the moment. So, and Shakara also said to me she doesn't actually know what these plants going to look like when they grow up, right? That's still a little bit of a mystery. So she wanted to give me some. I did not purchase them. She sent them to me for free so that I can grow them, and she's interested to see what they're gonna grow like in my place. Now, there will be variants. Whenever you do some sort of philodendron pollination, there will be variants. Not every seedling is gonna look the same. Not every plant is gonna grow up to look exactly identical, right? But I suppose that's part of the whole fun as well. Now, I did not expect this. Look at that. This has got to be the best packaging I have ever seen. This is insane. And I also didn't realize you're gonna send me 5 of them. I thought you're gonna send me maybe a couple maximum. But that's really cool, because then I can kind of grow a few of them in different parts of my house and see what they're going to like. So let's take this apart. They're all glued, they're all sticky taped in here, and they each come with their own little greenhouse. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, get in there a bit better. It looks better for you guys as well, so you can see what's going on. Look at this, each one came in like its own little greenhouse. Ten out of 10 for packaging. Well done. And look how cute. It's like a little greenhouse, and it even has a little vent so you can open it for airflow. Alrighty, so let's have a look at them. I definitely want to actually use the little cups. That's brilliant, but see, I might need to take off the cloche on top, because some of these are already quite large. Wow, okay. Look at this one. So this is a new leaf. You can definitely see the billy, but if you turn it around, you can definitely see some red. At this stage, it reminds me a little bit of, is it Corsinianum? Which is a verrucosum hybrid as well. I forgot the other parent. But it reminds me of that. Oh, I'm so excited. This is so cool. Sometimes I don't talk very positively about making hybrids, so I just wanted to clarify that as well. I'm not against making hybrids at all. I made my own hybrids before as well, and I absolutely love them. It's a really nice part of the hobby. That's interesting, that's a little more unique, you know, that's a little bit more challenging, and it's not just about getting all of the plants in the world and spending money and consuming. It's about, you know, kind of creating something yourself. So I really enjoy the art of creating hybrids in general. Me being really vocal in relation to the hybrids is more in relation to giving them super fancy names as an upselling technique. Now this one, she actually named it billicosum, which I think makes total sense. It still shows that it's billy and verrucosum as their parents, right? But when it comes to hybrids, I like to refer to them by their two parents usually, right? Because if we start using super crazy names for all of the hybrids, we eventually lose what the actual parentage was, and then we might end up with 5 plants that are named differently that are actually all the same. So I don't have a problem with the hybridization process in general. I don't have a problem with creating hybrids. I love hybrids. Some of my favorite plants are hybrids, like Glorious, Splendid, and so on. I just think there's a certain protocol to be followed if you make hybrids. If you want to give them super fancy names, there's also a certain protocol to be followed. And I'm just really against not following the protocols and then using it as an upselling technique for financial benefit instead. But that has nothing to do with this actual video and so on. Just wanted to raise that because I have been pretty vocal on hybrids in the past. It's almost packaged too well. I'm worried I'm gonna wreck it unpacking it. There we go. Number 1. I don't have any problem with people selling their hybrids. That is perfectly fine. And you know, of course, making hybrids takes a long time. Like, look how long this has been in the process. And you don't even know if it's successful. For every time you try, you might have failed 10 times. Who knows? So I have no problem with people selling their hybrids and trying to get some of the money back that they invested into it. I just don't like when suddenly there's hybrids popping up with super random names and the parentage get lost. Imagine 10 people make a hybrid using the same parents. Yes, there will be variability, but at the end of the day, they're all still hybrids of X and Y. Now, if everybody goes ahead and gives them a different name, we don't realize that all of them are actually just hybrids of X and Y. Yes, if you go through the proper protocol and you hybridize something and then you select a couple of plants from that batch that have certain features and you keep going with that, and you know, you end up being able to produce a plant whose features are distinct and you can repeat them, forgot the word. Go for it, like Splendid, you know what I mean? Splendid is a recognized hybrid of verrucosum in Melanochrysum, but somebody put a bit of effort into creating that. Who was it? Henderson, I think? Anyway, enough talk about hybrids. Alrighty, so I just took them all out of here. Okay, so these are super cool. I'll probably just put them into these. No, some of these already have roots hanging out, so I reckon I can get on top of repotting these. Now, usually I don't like to repot plants straight after I've received them because I'm like, well, oh, no way, look at this. Sorry. You even have branding on your pods. Honestly, I love that. If somebody is just good at what they're doing, I have a lot of respect for that. And it looks like you're really good at what you're doing and you have attention to detail as well. I love these little things. I mean, it's just branding at the end of the day. The plant is the most important thing. But it's these small little things that really show if somebody puts a lot of effort into it. Let me just unpack all of them and then I'll show you all of those a bit closer. Alright, let me show you all of them from smallest to largest. This is the smallest one. Second smallest one. You can see teeny tiny aerial roots over there already. Middle one, new leaf unfurling over here. Second largest one, again a new leaf unfurling over here, decent roots. And this is the largest one. You can see it's already growing via caterpillar over there. Or the first caterpillar is coming. And roots. So I just got a little bit of aeroid mix over here. It's quite tree fern fiber heavy because tree fern fiber has good water retention. Now, because they're still quite small seedlings, they really don't like drying out. I'll pop a little bit of moss in here actually. Now, based on their parents, they will definitely eventually be climbers, but I think they're quite small still. I think I don't need to give them a moss pile just yet. I want to put them back into these pots. And then once they outgrow these pots and I move them into a larger pot, probably, depends on how long that takes anyway, then I'll probably give them a smallish moss pile. I think for now it's still okay. So let's start off with the smallest one first. I will not break down the root ball over here. I'll just take it as it is, pop it on a little bit more aeroid mix, and then fill it up with a little bit more aeroid mix again. So there's no, like I'm not messing with the roots, let's say, you know. So again, I'm just not breaking this down. I mean, if something falls off, that is perfectly fine. Create a little layer of aeroid mix at the bottom, pop this in here, and then just top it up with more. Where normally I like my aeroid mix really chunky, when these plants are still quite small, too many chunks aren't too good. These roots do not want to dry out, and look how fine these roots still are. Look how fine they are, but you can see in here, everything is quite small bark, small perlite and so on. Okay, so let me water them and then I'll show you where I'll position them. Alright, first up, I'm in my plant room, so I'm going to put the biggest one in my IKEA cabinet because that is usually where I would put my small plants. If I would have only had one, that one would have gone in the IKEA cabinet. So I'm putting the one that is the biggest, that I think will have the best time thriving in the conditions that I think will give it the best chances of thriving. So this one will go in the IKEA cabinet and I just hang it in there using my clips, the IKEA clips. And then I have a second one here. I probably just need to, oh, by the way, if you have I just take candles, I clean them, get rid of all the wax with hot water, and then they make fantastic planters for small plants. I need to, it's a little too low, so let me see if I have anything. Righty, sometimes they are just a little too deep, so I just pop a little pebble at the bottom and then pop the plant on top, so it's a little bit higher, doesn't get shaded all too much. So this one I'll put here. This is a south-facing window, so and keep in mind I'm in the southern hemisphere, so I don't actually get direct sun coming through it, but I have a west-facing one here, so kind of sunset gets a little bit of direct light, but obviously sunset light is not super strong either. And then this one I put at the top of my cabinet to ensure it gets sufficient light. You know what, I think this one needs to go. I'll pop one in the greenhouse, I'll pop it right here. It gets a little bit of direct light, but the alocasia were able to handle it. Oh, I mean, look, there's a billy right here. Just get too shaded over there. Yeah, I'll leave it here. Alrighty, in my bedroom, I will, wow, it's kind of busy here. I'll pop it here. Wow. Well, I'm filming against the light, but you should be able to see my silhouette at least. The last one, the smallest one actually, this tiny one over here, I will just put here. And I do get really beautiful morning sun over here, so it should be okay. Alrighty, now the proof is actually in the pudding. I need to keep those plants there, I need to look after them and monitor their progress over the next couple of weeks or months, and I'll check in with you once there are any updates to share. See you soon. Oh, and just in case all of them die, which is quite unlikely, but could happen, massive thanks to Shak's Eden for giving me those plants. I'm really excited to grow them and see what they're gonna look like as they mature. Thank you so much for reaching out and providing me with those plants. I will link their Instagram as well as their website down below. They also sell plants within Australia if you're interested. So please check them out and I'll see you when I see you. And we're back. I just started filming and there's this massive storm cloud that's moving in. So it's getting really dark. I'm relying on my grow light to provide the light instead. It has been 3 months since I unpacked all of these plants, and I think some of them, probably all of them, are in a position to be repotted. So I think that's what we're going to do today. But first I want to show you the growth update, because some have done really well, some have done very little. All of them did okay actually, but there's definitely some differences. So let's have a look. This one is the one from my bedroom. I think it's doing okay. Definitely you can see it would love a little moss pole over here. This one is from the living room, probably the smallest one, but I think it was the smallest one anyway. New leaf unfurling over here. Again, I think it would love a moss pole already. This one is from the greenhouse. You can see definitely it's growing really nicely over here. Quite long internodal spacing actually. Also would love a moss pole and is also unfurling a new leaf over here. This one is from the office, probably has done the least progress. I can see some roots going into the pot. I don't think this would really need a moss pole just yet. It's still really early days for this one. I also think this one kind of makes me think there might have been a bit of thrips damage, but I haven't really seen any thrips since, so I don't know. I mean, let's see what the next leaf looks like. And then this one is from the IKEA cabinet. Absolutely shooting the lights out. Beautiful. Can really see the elongation from the billy. You can see the sheen from the verrucosum. You can see the red backs from the verrucosum. Yeah, that was the new sleeve, but there's already a new huge cutter fill over here with some roots. So this one definitely wants a moss pole. So far, it looks like the one in the IKEA cabinet is doing by far the best. So why don't we just start off with that one, because that one I definitely want to give a moss pole. So a good root system over here as well. I'm just going to loosen this up a little bit so I can fit the moss pole in here. I'm going to stay conservative with the pot size. I'm just going to give it a 10 centimeter pot, and that is just because I don't have that much room in my IKEA cabinet, and also the moss pole is going to be the extension of the pot, so I want this to root into the moss pole. So I'll just put this in here first. I'll slide the moss pole in behind. Beautiful. And I can take a piece of wire to kind of just pin it in place while I'll do my thing, just to hold it there for a hot minute. Now I'm going to top up the pot with aeroid mix, and I can also top up the part of the pot that's filled by the pole with aeroid mix. So I'm really excited to watch this grow, and I'm really happy with the progress I've had so far with these, and they've also been really easy going. Alright, now that I've done that, I can take the little piece of wire and let me bring you closer. You can see these roots over here will now find their way into the pole. I can continue using the clip, but I don't think it's really needed. Actually, that clip is too long. Do I have a smaller one? Go here, and I can just pin this to here so it gets a little bit closer, but it should find its way automatically because it will be attracted to moisture. You can see that? Here you go. Alright, sweet. Put my clip back on, and I'll pop that back into the IKEA cabinet. Obviously I'm going to give it some water first. So let's pack this on the side. I only have one of these moss pots left, so let's maybe go with the one. Which one is this? Greenhouse. It's the leggiest one, so I think that would make sense. Also good roots in here. I'm just going to do the exact same process, so let me just speed that up. Alrighty, sweet, done this. Alright, so I'm running out of grow vertical poles, the small ones, but I'm just going to make my own small grow vertical pole. I just want to have one more, but I'm not going to put all 5 on a pole, because realistically I don't actually need the same plant 5 times. So now, of course, that's going to screw the experiment a teeny tiny bit, but I think it's fine. You know, this is not a PhD submission. This is just a YouTube video. I think we'll be fine. I'm just going to cut the wire shorter, and then I'm going to put the plastic backing back on. That way the pole will be a little bit smaller but deeper. Let's go with this one. Fill this with moss as well. The other two don't look root bound either, so I'll just keep them exactly as they are. Alrighty, and I'll put them back into their respective spots, and we'll check in once there's a few more updates to share. So I'll see you soon. You would think that after so many years of filming YouTube videos, I would know a little bit better, but yet again, the last update was filmed in slow motion. Editing Jan should be able to just manually sync up the audio and speed it up by 4 to bring it back to normal speed, but the quality is so much worse when filming in slow motion. Anyway, unfortunately, that was also the update where I potted all of them up, so it's not something I can quickly redo, but it has been 3.5 months since that video, and quite a bit has happened. Now we are just at the beginning of spring over here, so the last 3.5 months were by far the worst months to grow plants in Australia, or at least over here in Sydney. It's been actually really cold, and it's been the coldest winter I have ever experienced in Australia, and it's my 12th year. And I had a lot of feedback from other people in New South Wales that are kind of sharing that sentiment. It seems to have been really, really cold. Not surprising that I haven't seen the most amazing growth, but there's actually a few things that have happened. So why don't we start off with the worst and then we get better over time? Let's do that maybe. Yay, let's start off with this one. This one is the one that was grown in the greenhouse, and well, out there it is exposed to the ups and downs. I don't heat my greenhouse over winter. It was just pure survival of the fittest, and well, this one was not the fittest. So yeah, probably not the best decision to keep it outside over winter, but given that I have 5 of them, I figured it is worth the experiment. Well, you win some, you lose some. This one I lost, but I'm gonna just repurpose that pole and give it to a different plant. Easy. We then have the one that was grown in my living room, and let me bring you a bit closer. Definitely something happened to some of these leaves, like I think some pests maybe. It has finally given me a new leaf now that we're heading into spring. So I reckon this would do well if I give it a pole, because it's looking a bit floppy and sad in here, huh? Alrighty, this one is the one that was in my office, and then I eventually moved it to being under this grow light over there, because I think it was just not getting enough light in the south-facing window in my office during winter. Yeah, I mean, it lost a few leaves. Actually, the latest leaf that was unfurling over here took a long time to unfurl. So I had a sneaky look and kind of manually unrolled it, and there were heaps of thrips in there. So I just cut the whole thing off rather than treating the plant. You guys know I feel pretty relaxed about pests usually. And yeah, it is now growing a new leaf over here since I put it under that grow light. So I reckon I'll give this a pole as well. Why not, right? If we are doing some repotting today, might as well. Next one. This was the one that I had the most hopes for because it's in my IKEA cabinet. But this is actually a really good example that shows that, you know, sometimes you can overdo it with conditions. Let me bring you a bit closer. So you can really see that some of these older leaves are very sunburned. I think it's sunburn. I have a second theory, but let's talk about it in a sec. And then they, you know, I mean, it happens over time. You can really see some, I mean, you can see the red in the back from the verrucosum, but I think this is also sun stress. And then the newest one, you can now just start seeing that sun stress kicking in. It actually looks really nice right now as it is. You can see that that one leaf that's kind of facing away, that is not red. That makes me think it must be sun. This one is also kind of facing away a little bit more, and it's also not as red. Oh, but nice root system and quite decent, quite short internodal spacing. So this plant has grown well, but as it grows, the leaves then deteriorate really quickly because of, again, I think too much light. Now this is only supported by a Soltec grow light in my cabinet, and I took a reading today. You know, I'm not usually doing like auto-mini readings with my grow lights and so on. I just let the plant tell the story. Well, this plant told me the story that it's a little bit too much light. So I did a reading just with the Photon app, and it told me use a diffuser. I don't have a diffuser, so I just put a piece of paper in front of it. So the reading in itself might be slightly wrong, but I suppose if that one reading is wrong, the other readings will also be wrong, if that makes sense. So we can at least see those 3 readings in relation to each other. I don't know how accurate the actual PPFD measure is. And I don't have my phone with me, 1 second please. So the ppfd measure in that IKEA cabinet, it's in the very top, at the very top in that prime position is 72. Now let's have a look at the last one, which is by far the one that has grown the best. And this one was in my bedroom. Now I hardly heat the bedroom over winter because I don't spend all too much time in there, but I heat the house, and as part of heating the house, hot air rises, the bedroom is upstairs. So it naturally is warmish. So it was averaging between like 18 to 20 degrees, whereas in the cabinet it's kind of like consistently above 20. It has good humidity during winter, but it had less light. So this one gets support from the mother life spectrum, and the life spectrum is a good 60-ish centimeters away. So I did a ppfd reading in there and it was 40. So let's say around about half the ppfd reading, and that seems to suit this plant much better. So I've got these beautiful glossy green leaves. You can still see some red in the back from the verrucosum parentage. All of the leaves are actually really nice. It has also hardly lost any of its leaves, and it is growing via caterpillar, and look at the size of this next caterpillar. However, it is growing with much larger internodal spacing, right? So I think the less light makes it climb with larger internodal spacing, but it doesn't damage the leaves. So this is definitely the way to go, right? So definitely that makes me think that this one was mainly light. Now the other theory could be that it was just a little bit too much water, because it's a really high humidity environment in the IKEA cabinet. And I've also noticed that this pole has actually shown a little bit of mold growth over here, which happens very rarely for me. If it happens sometimes in winter, and it only happens to poles that I usually have like chuck in that I really have like pushed in a corner with many plants in front of it, where it gets zero airflow, zero kind of light exposure and so on. Given that this one is in the IKEA greenhouse with constant airflow provided from a fan and high light exposure, I was actually a bit surprised to see mold, but it makes me think that maybe the cabinet and in general I was just watering a little bit too much. Sometimes when a plant absorbs too much water, cells can burst. Now of course also there could be some small differences between the plants. It could be that this plant is has more verrucosum parentage, hence it's more red. Pretty sure that this extent and just the way that it presents itself is definitely a conditional issue. So I'm going to move this a little bit further down in the IKEA cabinet to reduce the light exposure, to see if that does the trick. Okay, let's take this pole apart. Oh, here it is. I found it. It still exists. It still exists. That's the stump, but look at this. Completely rotten. So yeah, this one is gonna go in the bin. All right, let's take this plant. I just watered it today, that's why it's pretty soggy. I'm not gonna do all too much damage here. I think I'm trying to keep it as it is where I can, and I'm hoping that this root ball just perfectly fits in here. Yes. Perfect. So at that bottom part of the pole that I don't fill with moss, that root ball just fit in here. And let's top it up. That's good enough. The plant will automatically start facing forward again, so not much to do. I'll put it back in its little saucer over here. Next one, this one, let's just give it a pole as well, so then at least they all have similar treatment. Nobody's left behind. Take a little plant. Oh, actually good roots, huh? I'll pop it in here. Make sure that the stem touches the pole, and then I'll just top it up. Alrighty, we've got them all on poles now. We've already made some learnings, so let me implement my learning and let me also see how much these plants are going to grow over the upcoming spring. I'm very excited for that. As I mentioned, I've had this plant for the worst half of the year for now, so let's see what this plant can grow into over the next coming months. And Jan from the future is going to update you. Hello, it's only been 1 month, but there is updates. Let's focus on those two first. So those two were the ones that I believe in the last update I only put on these poles, and to be honest, nothing has happened. I think this one is getting a little bit too much light. Yeah, I can actually see no progress on this. This, I believe, yeah, this is the one that had thrips, right? These old leaves look terrible. I want to put this into the greenhouse outside. The temperatures out there are consistently above 10 degrees now, daytime easily over 20, so I think I want to put this outside because currently I have two in my living room. So I've got this one in the north-facing window over here, but I think it's actually getting a little bit too much sun right now. And then I've got this one supported by this light you see over there. So I like this newest leaf that came out. It has the nice color. I think it's just recovering from whatever shock it had before. I can see some roots down here. So this seems to be doing a little bit better down here. So I want to just keep it over there. Let's start with the bad news. This is the one that was in my IKEA cabinet. Now, I suspected it to be too much light, so I moved it all the way to the bottom of the cabinet. And there was actually one really big leaf of my verrucosum titanium hybrid, the verrucosum serpens hybrid, also called verrucosum titanium. And it was kind of blocking most of the light from that second grow light. So it ended up getting very, very little light down there. But it's in a really humid environment. And what the plant actually did is it aborted the existing growth point. The existing growth point just got moldy and fell off. Which is obviously not ideal, but I think it was probably just a little bit too wet and humid in there without the light, the plant wasn't growing, so it just got moldy. And down there, there's also the least airflow. The fan is at the top. So definitely something I need to be more careful with. I seem to be doing this too wet thing often. It is very algae in there, but you can definitely see some roots. So there's no rot of the actual root system or whatever, but it was just a growth point that was aborted. But could be a blessing in disguise. The plant is now activating two new shoots, one here and one here. So in the long run, I might end up with two beautiful plants on this pole. I have since moved it out of the cabinet and it's now just in my office in a south-facing window. Keep in mind I'm in the southern hemisphere and it's just getting natural light, ambient room temperatures, kind of above 20 at the moment, between 20 and 23. And room humidity fluctuates quite a lot, but between, wow, this bird has no chill out there, huh? Well, it's nature. Between, like, when it's really low, 30%, and when it's really high, 80%. Yeah. Bradley! Oh my god, Bradley is so keen on the birds. Bradley, they can fly. You have, like, no chance. Anyway, that's the bad news. Let me also put this back so we can focus on the good news. This is the one that's in my bedroom, supported by the mother grow light. And it has a long petiole, that's why the leaf looks much bigger than it actually is. But it is definitely decent sized. I mean, you can see it compared to my hands. Beautiful leaf. Also, you can really see the red from the verrucosum parentage coming through. The petiole is actually very smooth, so no verrucosum features seem to be in that petiole. You can't really see the roots. I don't know if that translates on camera, but I can see some discolorations over here for the root system, and definitely heaps of little roots over here. Now the main problem with this is that the newest node, you can see there's some aerial roots coming out here, and I would really love for these aerial roots to grow into the pole to further contribute to the root system and make this plant mature further, because at this stage this is the best candidate for me to actually grow into something nice, right? Let's do that, huh? Let's do it. Now I have a bigger pole, and I don't know what happened with this pole. I don't know what was on it before, but I think something was on it and then died. I'm just going to reuse the pole, I think. Or should I just... I can either reuse this pole, or I have just morphed this and just build a... Did I ever... Maybe I'll just extend it but keep it skinny. You know what? Let's try something new. Let's stick with the skinny pole. If I change my mind, we can always upgrade it to a thicker pole eventually, right? Some old roots stuck on there, which I can't really be asked to scrape off. But we might need to remember that later on when I assess the root health of the plant. We'll be like, look, I can see heaps of roots. No, they're the old ones. Okay, let me just quickly put this together. And I'm gonna overlap this by 3 cable ties, just because I don't actually need it to be that tall. Nice! The first one is the hard one. From here it's smooth sailing. I go through both plastics and then the mesh at the front as well. And just for good measure, I'll also take the 2 grids at the top and I'll just try and cable tie those. Now this is surprisingly stable actually in this tiny pot. But just for good measure, I think it's not a bad idea to give it a slightly larger pot. What do you guys think? Alrighty, so I've got a 14 centimeter pot, just slightly larger than the existing 10. Nothing impressive, but definitely the majority of the root system would be within the pole. Now, I think all of these smaller leaves down here will all be hidden by the potting medium. So I'll chop these off. I always put the pole towards the bottom of the pot. That is mainly for stability. I'll also reuse the existing medium. There was absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it's not even been in there for that long, right? And then I'm gonna top it up with more of my aeroid mix. I actually started doing a new kind of aeroid mix with a lot of Australian tree fern fiber in it. By the time you see this video, I would have probably already spoken about it a few times, but at this stage it's very new. It's the second day of using it. I did a bit of repotting with it yesterday. Alrighty. I will go look for a nice pot to put this in and we will see each other once there's some news to share. See you soon. Alrighty, and here we are. There's 4 of these billicosums left and well, some have done much better than others. But let's have a quick look at all of them a little bit closer and then I'm going to share with you my tips, tricks, learnings and so on. Alrighty, this is the first one. This was in my east-facing window, which gets a lot of direct sun these days. We're in summer, we're middle of the summer at the moment. That's why these leaves are kind of pointing forward. I think they were just getting too much light exposure and yeah, hence they're kind of flopping over to expose less of themselves to the sun. Not ideal, so I changed its position and it's now in a north-facing window. North-facing window in the southern hemisphere is actually getting the most exposure during the cooler season or during the shoulder seasons, but in summer I don't get any direct sun, so it should actually have less sun in a north-facing window, ironically. But yeah, well, not too much to share, but lesson is definitely that it doesn't like too much direct sun. Second one over here, this is the one that started off in my office and then eventually moved into the greenhouse. It had a very slow recovery and I think there was also some pest issues, but it is now finally growing and it is actually a little more chubby, not as elongated as some of the others. Still has some nice verrucosum parentage over here and the petiole is pretty smooth actually. Yeah, again, nothing crazy, but I think it's still quite a nice plant. Now, of course, I already killed one that was in the greenhouse, so I do not want to keep this plant in the greenhouse over winter. It's really just there for spring, summer and autumn. So yeah, I will take this inside if I remember. Hopefully I'll remember. Next one, and that was initially like my favorite, right? Or that was initially the one that I thought would have the most potential, the one that was in my IKEA cabinet, and it grew so well for the first half a year or so, and then eventually things just went downhill. Now in this video I addressed that I thought it was too much light exposure. I don't necessarily think I identified that correctly. Thinking about it, I do think that most of this tissue on this plant got like its bursted cells. So I think it was actually too much water, which also makes sense if we're thinking about the growth point rotting away, right? Because that's usually a sign of just too much moisture, either via watering or because of the environment. So I think because it was in such a high humidity environment that it doesn't really need, I should have been much more conservative with watering and actually giving it a proper drying out phase. Now, after it aborted that growth point, I took it out of the IKEA cabinet because obviously if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I put it in an environment that's not as humid, and it then reshot. Actually, only one shoot really eventuated. The second one is kind of stuck in the early development stage, and that new shoot has given me this leaf over here now. It is still really, really red in the back, like more red than the others, but the red, and I don't know if that shows, but the front is just nice and shiny, right? It doesn't have this weird red discoloration over here. So ultimately, I don't think it was too much light. I think it was too much water in the environment and provided to the plant. Not enough water to kill the root system, ironically enough. The root system in the pole was fine. Normally, when providing too much water, I would be mostly worried about the roots. But yeah, anyway. And to be honest, at the end of the day, I'm still not sure if that is actually the right diagnosis. It could also just be a combination of both, but maybe that in itself is already learning. I've been doing this for, I think this is my 6th year of growing plants now, and of course in the grand scheme of things, 6 years is actually nothing, but I'm pretty specific with the plants I choose. I like to choose aeroids, I like to choose climbers. And still within that very small niche within the plant hobby, and after 6 years of doing things, and I mean, I'm pretty involved in my plant hobby. I'm not just growing plants, I'm also constantly talking about them, constantly being asked questions about plants and so on. So even with all of that involvement in the plant community and all of this planty talk non-stop, there are moments where I'm not actually exactly sure what happened, or where I just need to guess or apply a little bit of common sense, but there's still chances that I misidentify things. And I think that is also okay. You know, I think sometimes it isn't that super obvious, and sometimes it is not that straightforward. I think because we are always looking for answers, and when you ask people on the internet a question, you will get many, many answers, and everybody will tell you with a lot of confidence that their version of their answer is right. I think we assume that everything must be known and everybody must know everything, but I think this uncertainty in the plant hobby is normal, and I think irrespective of how long I would be doing this for, there would still always be uncertainty with certain things, right? And I think this is just an example. But at the end of the day, I changed something, I'm now getting new growth, the growth is also bigger than ever, and whatever I've done to change it definitely resulted in no longer having the deformation. So, well, I gave it less light and I gave it less humidity. So I'm not sure which one of those two, but most likely a combination, right? So trial and error worked, even though I can't necessarily be like 100% sure about the lesson learned. All I know is that it worked, and ultimately that's the important part, right? But let's move on from all of the failure and let's have a look at the success story. This is the one that was upstairs in my bedroom, supported by the mother grow light, and this was the latest leaf. And I think in this leaf you can really see both of the parents being represented. You do have the elongation, you have the green shimmery leaf, or like more shiny leaf like a billietiae, but you do have a little bit of the sheen from the verrucosum. It reminds me of like a majestic, for example. The majestic is also not velvet, but has this sort of sheen. And then in the back, the verrucosum parentage is very, very clear. Also very interesting, this plant seems to produce very long petioles and a lot of extra floral nectaries on not just the petiole, but also on the leaf. I'm not too sure if you can see that here. So that's very interesting. Despite the plant being quite small, there's already quite a lot of extra floral nectaries. Extra floral nectaries give out the little nectar. That's that little sugary sap that you see there, and it usually is to attract beneficial insects and so on, but can also cause a little bit of visual damage. So just something to be aware of. Now, this would have been such a great success if it wasn't for whatever happened about a month or 2 months ago. It aborted its growth point. Exactly the same that happened to the other one, but this one wasn't even in such a high humidity environment, and I've been fairly careful with watering this. But obviously I might have not been as careful with it as I thought it was. It was during the period where I was also fighting fungus gnats, so I was actually watering quite frequently because with every watering I was treating the plants to fight the fungus gnats. So I think I watered a little more than I would normally do because of the treatment, and maybe that was it. So I think just another confirmation that ultimately it wasn't the light, because the light hasn't changed for this plant the entire time that I've had it. It was always in front of that mother grow light. I think it would have been a change in the watering frequency as a result of it getting much warmer and the fungus net treatment. So it to me confirms that the other one was probably also just too much water. So it seems to be a plant that really does not appreciate the really high humidity tropical environment, but rather dries out a little bit, like a Jose Bueno, for example. So it must come more after the billy parentage, because I know verrucosums definitely don't want to dry out. And to be honest, I've never had this happen to my verrucosums, but I can't even keep a billy alive. So I think let's blame it on the billy parentage. Again, blessing in disguise. It has reshot in 2 spots, one here, and actually, I don't know what this is, but there's another shoot here. So it might work out for me in the long run, because I might actually end up having a lusher pole. And I think that's a good thing, because the other thing that I learned about this plant is that it actually grows with fairly large internodal spacing. Internodal spacing when providing a lot of light was getting a little bit smaller for sure, but obviously the rest didn't work out. And it grows with really long petioles. I'm not surprised. Verrucosum has ginormous internodal spacing, billietiae has ginormous petioles, so it actually got the worst of both worlds in this instant. But knowing what this plant grows into, I would definitely double or triple plant this plant on a pole to just add a little bit more volume and lushness. Because it also spreads quite a little bit. And while the leaves in themselves are quite nice, I think the leaf to petiole ratio is just not my preference. Unfortunately, the other ones didn't really eventuate that much, so I can't really see major differences between the little seedlings because they're still all in such different stages or have various forms of damage and so on. It would have actually been nice to have 2 maybe growing in the same conditions and just see whether the actual specimen shows any difference based on them being grown from seed. But look, at the end of the day, I only have so much space. So this is definitely my main one that I want to put a lot of effort in, but I think with the others I might still experiment a little bit here and there. Specifically with the one I showed you second, the one that's currently in the greenhouse, because I feel like it is a little chubbier, a little bit more rounded. If we compare leaves of similar size, let's say, see how this one was a little bit more elongated, this is a little bit chubbier. Like nothing crazy, but I'm trying to find differences here. So I think I will definitely try and put a little bit more effort in those as well to see if maybe I get a little bit more variety out of that batch of seeds, but I'm actually quite happy with the way that this plant presents. And I think it is so cool to grow a plant that you haven't really ever seen anywhere, because you don't actually know what it grows into. So I think it was a really, really rewarding experiment for me, and it was a really fun experiment for me, despite having so many setbacks or like failures throughout the year as well. It was definitely not smooth sailing, and I think that's also a good lesson to learn. Well, if you're growing a plant that you've never grown before and also nobody else has ever grown before, how could you possibly expect instant results, right? It is about trial and error and finding out what this plant likes. This is also not a plant that you can Google and find out, oh, what would its natural habitat be like? Well, you would need to Google the parents and their natural habitat and then kind of, choose something in between, I suppose. But look, I enjoy getting this hands-on experience with this plant rather than just researching it and then following a checklist. I think that made it a really rewarding journey. But I think that is also all I have to share about this plant. I hope it was an interesting journey for you to come along, and I can't wait to show you what this plant might look like in another year's time. Thank you again, Shakara from Shak's Eden, for providing me with the seedlings in the first place, and thank you for putting in the effort of creating that beautiful hybrid in the first place. I will link her Instagram and website down below, and if you are in Australia, these are available for sale, I believe, as well. And last time I checked, they were also super affordable, so 10 out of 10. Anyway, I'll wrap it up. Give this video a thumbs up, leave a nice comment and make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!